episode 1 of Speakin My Piece with Dekel Bor. If you're not familiar with Dekel, you can learn about his interesting story at ropeadope.com and on his website. And today he has a special guest in the house, Walter Smith III, who recently released an album with Matthew Stevens entitled In Common 2 on Whirlwind. Thank you for joining us, and we'll get over to Dekel and Walter right now.
I'm sharing this 1 second. All right, let me go on live. Walter, how are you? How's everything?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Good to hear you, man. Thanks for coming.
Yeah,
how you guys been? How's the family?
Yeah, that was the start for me of, the
thing, everything. That was like the album.
Yeah, that was where it started for me, and it was like, oh wow, this is so different than what I've been listening to, and then it just started, that whole thing, and then this band that he just released the album with is like back to, I guess the first one with that band was it Joshua Redman or was it Mood Swing? I can't remember which.
Mood
Mood Swing
I
was the
think
first.
Josh Workman came first, where Clamps is playing on String and Tinkle,
Exactly.
and it's like a mixer. McBride's on it, Kevin Hayes,
Yeah.
and Mood Swings came right after.
Yeah, so that was like this band, and you're right. I think it was together. What albums did they do? It was Mood Swing, and then Live at the Vanguard. Yeah.
Yeah, where they, I actually saw that band live. It was, to see him live is kind of mind blowing because it's like seeing a mountain explode or something. He's really like, still, it's like, every time I get in, I go, it's like one of the few people that leave your jaw on the floor.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah, definitely.
For me, that album and getting there was that. I learned every little thing, how to comp. This is how you comp. How you play solo. This is how you play solo. And Sonny Rollins, the bridge. And that's, that's pretty wonderful.
Yeah. I always wonder about that, like if it, because when I imagine, back in the 60s and the 50s and even earlier, every album that would come out was so important. And I think every musician would like gravitate towards them and they would learn all the stuff on them. And I do feel like, as you mentioned, like for our generation of people that came up still buying CDs and going to buy it, like every release was like a major event. And then you get attached to that and you can't wait for the next one to come out. And you're searching for early ones, but they're out of stock and it's hard to find, all that kind of stuff. But now I wonder, if people, rely on those releases as much as we did. I get the feeling not so much, but that things seem to be they move quicker now. They don't have as much impact.
I have a feeling that the humans, like I don't mean to get all sentimental, but there's a human need for meaning. And some things, they touch people, but I think we're just so oversaturated with information that it's hard to it's hard for us sometimes to know that something had an impact until you gotta go. I remember I emailed you out of the blue probably like 15 years ago. We have a lot of mutual friends, pretty much all my friends are close friends of yours. And I missed you guys in Paris with Ambrose when the first CD just came out. I think I played that same festival 2 days prior or something. But I emailed you to say hi and say that I missed you and wanted to catch you said. And I remember the buzz, people talking about going to see you guys. There was like, and so and you can see the impact that band also had over time. And I just saw kind of like the same thing happening with Alan Park's band. I went to see them, and you could see people, they kind of almost know the tunes, almost know the melodies. People are not necessarily musicians.
Right, but right. The Little Big band?
Yeah. But it doesn't translate to necessarily to streams or to clicks or to fucking likes. Right. This generation that is so Twitter oriented.
Well, I believe I know what you mean, because it's funny. Sometimes it can feel like you're doing it in a vacuum, but then that's one of the cool things ever since I've been more into education over the last few years. You just ask people, and they are checking it out. It just doesn't feel like it the same way, from this side of things. But they are serious about it, so that's cool.
But they're also the most hip ones, to whatever thing that we're doing. Like I released my album 2 months ago. I was supposed to hold it in here and say this is the album, but since your album didn't come in until like 2 days from now, I'm not holding mine and not holding yours. So let's pretend I'm holding in Common and Twio and saying we're giving them away. They're fucking amazing, statements. And so I released the album, and it felt like it got into absolute vacuum. And then 2 months pass, and I mean nothing. I get like my followers list is like it's literally going down. And then I get the label, I get a statement. I swear to God. I mean, I start, and I start doing this and I do that and doing this. It literally goes down, and I get a statement from the label, and it's like 100K listeners. And I'm like, where the fuck did that come from?
Yeah.
And I'm also expecting, like, we had a tour get canceled, and um, I was kind of expecting two people, and a cat to be in each gig or something. It's like it's so hard in this super oversaturated world to know who's going to come, who's going to respond. But I will say this. I mean, we have so much time. We were supposed to move back to New York, and we kind of got stranded in Berlin. And there's so much time to think and so much time to feel and to and the world is in such flux right now. And I keep getting the feeling that I read, the news and this, and since the pandemic, I've been reading the news in like 4 countries to see how, all your dear ones are doing. And I keep getting the sense that as absurdly weird things are right now, they were just as weird, let's say, in 65 and in 69, trying to go out of Vietnam, and in 49 or in 44 in New York, playing bebop, or you read the news from Europe. I mean, I'm sure it was just as bad. But if we look at, if I just look at this, you know what I mean? I just look at those people. I mean, this kind of, this kind of thing, that it stays. The impact stays. Like, I just need to say Charlie Rouse, and you're gonna get a feeling in your stomach. But if I say Nixon, you said, yeah, I read about him in school. So, without being absurdly optimistic, whatever it is that I think that the cultural milestones have a way to change people and to touch people and they make a difference. And I think we see a lot of politicians come and go, especially, hopefully we see them come and go. But these guys, they kind of, they kind of stay in the most beautiful way. So I think I'm trying to remind myself that this is it's a moment in time. And when we're going to stay, when your kids are going to be a little older, you're going to go to the pandemic, you're like, what are you talking about? It's like holding an iPod. I mean, yeah, we know that someone had that. So,
yeah.
And I think especially with what's happening with you teaching and the way that younger musicians, like, I don't think there's anyone from our generation that has an impact on the younger generation that you have. And the response, and I think there's something that is very, very rare. And I think it has to, like, the music never lies. And I see the way that people respond to it. So let's talk about In Common for a minute.
Okay.
And I'm including both of the volumes. We were supposed to give 2 of them today on vinyl as an alternative to the Spotify thing that he said before. And then Worldwide Recording said, give both of them away. We'll give another set for Matt Stevens when he comes in the show. So we're giving two sets of vinyl. Whoever shares the thing from the Jazz Times channel, we'll reach out to one of you guys and send you some vinyl. How did that come about? I know you guys went to Berkeley together, you've been playing for years together, but to make what's the story behind it?
Yeah, so like you said, we went to Berkeley together, and I didn't know him at Berkeley as a student, but I met him kind of towards the end of my time there because we were both playing with Christian Scott, who was also at Berkeley, and we were in his band, and we did his first recording before he was on a label. He just did an album, and he had some tours set up. And on those tours, that's where I really got to know him. And he would always bully me and just tease me about my clothes. At the time, I shopped at the Gap a lot, and I wasn't really super stylish like I am today. So he really, yeah, exactly. He was really getting on me about that. So anyway, we kind of known each other. We played in that band. We did a bunch of those albums together. And then when he moved to New York, I had just moved to Los Angeles, but we both ended up getting signed to Concord Records at the same time, actually along with Logan Richardson. And then they had all the new people.
Logan is the first guy that told me about you. I mean, we were 20 or something. And he said, like, we would play, we played in a couple of bands. One was with Jamire, who was also from Houston. And he would say, and I would try and follow it, one of his solos, which still seems daunting. He would say, well, wait till you hear my friend Walter, he's in Berkeley. And he's the first guy that hit me with what you're doing. I think we were just like, we were either 20 or 22, maybe, tops.
Yeah. That's cool, man. Yeah, he's been a great friend ever since I met him in high school. We were in one of those big bands together. He's from Kansas City, so it was like a regional thing. Great dude, amazing alto player.
Yeah.
But so we all started with the label at the same time, and there were a bunch of people that were kind of new to it. I think so. Gerald Clayton and Chris Bowers and Jamire was supposed to be a part of the label, and Ben Williams, and then the three of us, and then Christian Scott all did an album together of cover music called Cover Art. So that was supposed to be the initial thing, and then everyone was going to do their own projects separate from that. And then, a lot of things happened in there, and it never ended up going any further for various reasons. And we always had talked about doing another one of those cover art albums, and that also never really happened. So Matt and I were still talking about, well, why don't we just do something kind of along those lines, but let's not do cover music. Let's write music for it and kind of make it. Let's pick. We created a formula for the group.
What's the formula? This is the time to give us the secrets. I mean, the whole world is watching. Give me the juice.
If you're doing a co-led album with somebody, I think it's important to put parameters around it so you're both, because if no one's in charge, it's hard to really determine, well, what if you're going to write music and I'm going to write music, we still want it to be kind of cohesive. What are we going for? So we decided in order to pick the band, we were going to pick some people from our generation that maybe one or both of us, everybody knows each other, but you don't always get put in the situations where you're touring or recording with people. So there are people you might see 100 times in a year and never get a chance to play with. So it was that kind of thing. Let's put together that kind of thing, and then somebody that's not in our generation, either older or younger. And then we'll form a band that way. And then musically, everything needs to be like one page. No, we're not reading.
I was going to ask you about this.
We don't want any I just want to give you the music. I don't even want to send it to you beforehand. Just show up and play.
So this is after Trio and after Still Casual, which is I'm sure the music pages were like.
Right. Yeah. So this was 2 years ago was the first one, and so just one, simple tunes, and again, not because the people that are on the album can't read music and play it, but just so that there really isn't anything you're thinking of. It's like if we just played all the things you are, like you have a different level of comfort because it's just so familiar. So going for that vibe with it. So with that one,
no rehearsal.
No rehearsal. We just showed up. We did it, the first one at the studio, which is upstate New York, the Clubhouse, and they have apartments in the back. So we just went for a weekend. Drove up Friday, got sounds, and then recorded basically Saturday. We took a lot of breaks. Harish cooked a full-on turkey dinner for 4 or 5 hours. Yeah, it was pretty ridiculous. And then Saturday morning, I think we were in there for an hour. but I mean Sunday morning. So it was very loose. Everything was pretty much one take. I think the first tune we played for a couple hours to Jerry Allen tune to kind of get sounds, and once that was done, everything else was just kind of 2 hours. We're done with the whole album.
That is something that is completely foreign to me. Like, I remember getting the album Crisscross and listening to it like only that thing for like, I don't know, a couple of months. And then I did a session with Eric. And I said, and we went to lunch, and I said, Eric, what's the deal with that album? I mean, how many rehearsals? You guys, the level of playing is like, and the musicality, and it's really, for me, that's like, that's one of, it's exactly right there. It's one of the only things that we brought from Tel Aviv to Berlin. And he said, we did one gig at the gallery or something. And that was the rehearsal for this session. And then it's a Jerry Dekel session, so it's like 10 hours or something.
Right, exactly.
And that's it. And hope you like the sound, and good luck to you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that one was kind of the same. We played the night before, and there were a lot of mistakes on the album. There are things that I cut out after the gig. I was like, all right, let's just skip this section, that kind of thing. But again, for the purpose of making the music as best as possible and making everybody as comfortable as possible. So in the end, that one sounds like to me when I went back. This was in the last 6 months. I went back and made myself listen to my album, which I had not. Of course, is he in Berlin now?
Yeah, they've been here for a while. So
Oh,
we've
wow.
been rehearsing music, and every week I'm coming and I'm changing a bridge, and I'm adding 4 chords, and I'm taking this away, and I'm taking that, and I'm adding a line. I'm not one of those guys that just write a bunch of tunes, bring it to one rehearsal, one session, and what we do. And so in Common, the album that just released, and I'm kind of putting it together just for the sake of doing this. It's really just one page, no rehearsals.
Yeah. I think you mentioned playing with Ambrose's band, and that was a big thing for me as far as like getting to the point of like letting go of the control of it, because my first album, I remember like I remember telling Eric Carl, I just have this memory in my mind. There's a song on there called Kate Song, and it has like this drum solo that goes through this loop, and then it's supposed to go to a saxophone solo. In my mind, when I had that set, I pictured his solo going from here to getting so big by the time my solo starts. And when we were doing it, I remember stopping him in the solo and being like, "Hey man, can you like play more like a bigger solo? I would like it to be really big." And then like thinking like, this is not how I pictured it. This is not what I want, like that kind of thing. And then kind of carrying that for a while, and then getting in his band where he would bring, I'm talking 1-page songs. He would bring like 5-page songs to the sound check and put it on, and it's like, it's like in 9 for a second, and then it goes through a bar 5/8, and it's super fast. And you got Justin Brown and Harish who make everything really fun to play. But when you're trying to read it, if you're not confident, you might get lost really quickly. So like getting in that thing, and then he'd be like, "All right, yeah, let's play this tonight." And I was like, "Wait, did you hear what I just heard when we ran through this?" But just like getting into that thing of not being worried about what it's going to be. And then, I imagine that a lot of older recordings that I love had that vibe where it's just like, I don't really know what this is going to be. Let's play it. And then it ends up being like, of course, everybody's favorite stuff. So
Yeah, I just got that. Are you into vinyl at all? Are you into that?
I am, but what you have on your couch right now is, if I don't count the copies of Twio that I have in my basement, more than I have in my.
We're giving one away if you want one.
No more Twio, please.
I don't have it here. So I got, when it just came out, I got the Love Supreme when it's three thing. You get the original album, you get the tracks that he took home, like a mono mix that Train took home to listen to, and then you get the sextet version. It's the first time I really kind of got into it. And you read about it, and I emailed Ashley Cannon asking a little more about it. So he planned the quartet session almost as a rehearsal to the sextet. It was supposed to be a sextet album. Talking about, and they come and they play the way they play, and he had sketches, and we've seen the sketches.
Right.
And it's really what you're talking about. I mean, they play the way they play, and that's pretty much it. And it was it could have been a rehearsal for all intended and purposes. Like, we know that guy recorded a lot of sessions, a lot that he had in his contract, that he can come in whatever he like. So it's a lesson unto itself. But I think, I don't know, I'm really kind of thinking that my music is going completely the other way, and it's going to be more and more involved, and it's going to be a record, down the line, just playing acoustic with Billy Hart, no effects, no nothing, but just not just yet. So talking about the more, let's talk about real casual, which I also think is kind of like it's kind of almost, I think, like for the kids that you're teaching, it's going to be a landmark album. That is obviously more involved. Writing is more involved. What was the process behind that?
So from the one we talked about before, the crisscross one, that Still Casual was 2 years afterwards, and that crisscross one was the first album that my whole point on that one was I want to write all the music on the album. Like, I want to have something that's full of original composition. And then after, when it was finished and I listened to it, I just really wasn't happy with my skill as far as a composer. I felt like everything was the same. Everything was really basic. I didn't like any of the songs. I had to play solos on them in order to make the song relevant. It wasn't even about. I feel
exactly the same way.
You know what I mean?
Exactly the same way.
So the whole point was, whatever I do next, the only thing that I'm focusing on is going to be writing. So I wrote every day for 2 years up until the session. I rewrote. I workshop songs. I would take them to gigs.
What does that mean to you, workshopping song? I mean,
workshop means, like, so for instance, if I, like, okay, on there's a song called About 360, which I originally wrote as like a 12/8 song, and I would take it and play it with people and not really be in love with how it came out. So I would take it back and think about different ways that I could make that song work, because I was trying not to throw things away. That's my usual thing. It's like, you write something, you play it, I don't like that, and then you put it in a pile. I was trying to make this about composition, to almost like problem solving. Let me take this. Why doesn't it work? What can I do to change it? So workshopping it, I take it to another gig and be like, hey, can we try this today? And, let's try it with this, and I'll change some of the rhythms so that it works in this different way or a different tempo, all that kind of stuff. So that one ended up, after I probably played it with 5 or 6 different groups of people in all these different ways, I settled on thinking about playing it really fast. I adapted the chords, the melody, I simplified it a little bit, and then...
Simplified it a little bit?
Simplified. Oh, yeah, it was...
Have you heard the tune?
Actually, no, not in a long time.
Tell me the truth. How much cocaine are we talking about just in that session for that track?
Never happened.
All the second quintet tracks where everybody thinking he was coked out of his mind to play like that. I think that's a landmark album. But to be honest, for me, Green on that album is that's kind of the kind of statement that if I have one of that in career, I'd be pretty proud of that whole career. I mean,
Thank you very much.
That performance.
Yeah, with that song, all the stuff that it's about and what it means. I remember the first time that we played it was actually on one of Eric Harlan's gigs with his Voyager band. We played the jazz standard for a week, and I brought it in maybe halfway through, and we played it. And I remember when we were playing it, I was like crying through it, like my eyes were closed. Like
Eric and Green are very close too.
Yeah, exactly. So it really, that's a first for me, because I usually avoid topics or subject matter like that, and I think that was kind of getting my feet wet with it and seeing the difference of what it means to perform that in a set. It kind of got to the point where I didn't even want to play it in certain. I would be making a set list, going to do 2 or 3 sets and looking at the songs, and then trying to figure out where to put that, and because afterwards I'm going to be like exhausted, or I'm going to be thinking about, it was like that kind of thing. And it took a while to kind of get used to detaching a little bit from the feeling of it. But it is something that I'm now going to work on with whatever my next project is. I'm kind of trying to get more in tune with that part and be more comfortable with like more serious subject matter. No more video game songs.
And getting that kind of performance in the studio, just getting that vibe. Any tips from that? Any ideas? Anything to share?
Yeah, I mean, well, again, the thing for me is getting to that point where you are not in control of it and not really giving direction. And if you call the people that you really have in mind when you're writing to play your music, and you just trust that they can interpret what you mean. I explained to them what it was about, told them the general arc of it, but that was it. I didn't really say anything. And now, although, Kendrick is a master of like shaping things, Harish is in there all the time, rhythm, everything. And then Matt and Taylor, almost specifically, are both like 2 of my favorite accompanists, because I think that they're part of like building the ensemble. I don't feel like there's a lot of comping up here when the ensemble is doing this, and then the solos up here. They're kind of like, everybody's creating that one sound. So even I remember after listening to it to see how, what are they doing that builds, because sometimes on a tour you're going to play with different musicians. It won't always be the band that recorded the album. So I wanted to have an insight to kind of give tips, and it's like some of the things that Taylor is doing on piano, where he's like doing like tremolos and all that kind of stuff. Like it's so quiet, man, but it's like there, and it really fills up the ensemble. So to answer your question, call the right people and trust them to do what you want. And I think in that, it really did make me realize how important, if you have a direction or some kind of background to what the song is about, and people can be in touch with that, then it really, whatever it is going to be how they interpret that feeling. And we all seem to think the same in that one.
Oh, amazing. And so, speaking about your next project, what do you have in mind? Just with all all the standard we have. Things.
Yeah. Well, there are a couple things that have been floating around. I don't want to say which one will be next, but I've been talking with Jason Moran about a project, a duo. We played at Mesro a couple years ago, and it was really, for me, it was like an incredible experience. He thinks with you in a way that, like when you breathe, all of a sudden he's also, he's like so intuitive with all that stuff. And we've talked about maybe doing something, and I'm working on trying to get that in motion. I think it would be like a duo with strings as well, which could be pretty cool.
He's an incredible. I never really got to know him until recently. Like we started talking really super recently. For whatever reason, and all that time in New York, like I met him once. We did a with like a small session or something. We never really got to talk or anything at all. But he's an amazing guy. And you've been in the band that played the Fats Waller thing with Logan.
Well, the one with Logan is
the monk thing. The monk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I subbed one time in the Fats Waller. That was fun.
And what's the other one?
Another one is I'm writing more music for that Still Casual band, and I want to do another with that group. And then, of course, the trio thing is that's what I've been playing the most over the last 2 years. So that's kind of also on the, whichever one of those kind of becomes a complete picture in my mind first is the one that's going to be next.
It kind of seems like the trio album had a really strong impact. Like, I mean, it seems like that thing, like, I know that's from, like, I did a couple of clinics at the school that all the Israelis go to, but we heard about it. Like, we all went, me and Abishai, we all went to the same school. So, they were a couple of years older than I am. And I did a couple of clinics there, and I play with a couple, like, they're like 17-year-old guys, and they want to play nobody else but me because I'm completely sure because you play. And then they played like there were a couple of tunes that people asked for, and that nobody kind of almost never asked for. Mm-hmm. And I realized, and they wanted like someone 11-5. I'm like,
there it is. Well, that's something to me that I remember, when you talk with students and you try to get them to listen to, like, for instance, I'm trying to think somebody like Miguel, who composes all the music for the band. It's incredible. And then you try to, hey, listen to this, and they're trying to work on learning standards. They can't necessarily even comprehend, like, on any level what that is. But then I remember always finding stuff like Lage has that album Live at Smalls where they play all the things, all those tunes. And a lot of people really gravitate towards that. There's an Aaron Parks album with, it's not his, it's Anders Christensen album with Paul Motion where they play a bunch of tunes.
Oh,
and, Hear Someone.
Yeah.
And a lot of, you just see it over and over. A lot of people gravitate towards those because it's songs that they can get on, they have a lead sheet to or something, and they can kind of figure out what's happening with it. So I think inadvertently that was kind of the reason. It has nothing to do with the playing. It's just that, there's songs that they can get lead sheets to.
I completely disagree with you. I think that there's something in your playing. I mean, I remember what it was like for our generation. For us, going to the new school, it was a little more immediate. Like, we would go to see Mark and Court play at Smalls when they were still playing in Smalls.
Yeah.
I remember that you would go to any practice room and someone would be playing Mark Turner music, for lack of a better term. And that's every solos and it seems like there's a guy in the generation that has a really strong connection with the generation that's coming up. And it seems that for you, that album had a really strong, I'm only speaking from what I'm getting a feeling from younger musicians. That thing had a really strong impact. And I think, and you also have a thing you're playing, I don't know what, that's your personality, that it seems very effortless. I mean, it's very rare that I hear you play and I hear you putting a lot of, like putting a Kenny Garrett mode. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's really, there's always a sense of effortlessness in a very beautiful and natural way. And I think people really respond to that.
Well, thank you. I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
All right. So just before we wrap up, anything that you wanna talk that's going on with you, or anything you wanna bring, or just talking about albums that I love?
Well, I remember at some point somebody told me you played with Johnny Griffin.
I played with Johnny Griffin twice. It's a huge thing for me. It's a huge. Johnny Griffin is a huge thing for me because I'm literally getting everything, any Johnny Griffin that I can, and it's mostly has to do with the Monk album that made a huge impact on me.
The live at the 5 Spot.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
And yeah, and I always feel that album is a little unsung. But so I did a 1 year in Copenhagen, and I played with Niels Henning, and I played in his band. And Niels Henning in the '90s were like Christy and McBride in any given year. It was like God in Europe. Like we were touring, and we were like touring festivals. And I'm a kid, and I was literally learning to play. I was just out of high school, and somehow I landed a gig, and I was there for 1 year, and he guested on three gigs, 3 festival gigs.
Wow.
And it was, to be honest, I didn't really have the tools to really get the situation at the time. Like I was just too young and immature. But it was a huge year of mine, and he had all of the shit that I thought I was getting into jazz in the first place for. Like he had the way he looked, the way he talked, the way he walked, the way he dressed. It was like, wow. It was really wow. And when he played, it was very similar to the way he played with Roy on the Tenors album. It had that growl and all the soul and all this, the juice. But I think I was a little immature to even grasp the situation. I was literally struggling just, making the changes. I was 19 or 20. We did a couple of things. But it really prepared me in a minute. Like I learned so much from those people, and I also learned a lot from them about just being a human being. Just the way. And when I moved to New York, when I got a gig with Reggie Workman, I think he only took me because I played with Niels Henning, and he liked him.
Oh wow.
And then I got to meet him again. He was playing with Oscar Peterson at the Blue Note. And I went to the gig and said, introduced myself. And I don't know if you remember me. I was this kid. And he said, yeah, I don't know if he was being nice or whatever, but it was super nice, and it was kind of incredible. But I think the more mature I get, the more I really miss those opportunities. Like I really miss not being able to record with Persip, and he just died like a week and a half ago. I was on the bus crying.
Yeah. And
for our generation, I was being 25 in New York, and my dream was to play with Eric Holland, and to play with someone like Persip. I think I almost took it for granted, almost.
Right.
And right now it seems like the most, like I would die. I would pay to be on a gig just to get that beat. I mean, I don't need anything. Just give me the fucking mic symbol. So I think as those opportunities are beginning to run away, like I'm calling Jabali on a weekly basis saying, hey man, how you doing? How's the family? How's everything?
Yeah.
Well, because this pandemic thing. So I think those opportunities, they're slipping away somehow, and it feels more urgent now more than ever. And call on your mentors and see how they're doing. And so I kind of wish that I could bring more to the table back then. But man,
I know what you mean.
It was fucking amazing.
Wow.
It was fucking amazing. I had the same thing with Roy. Like we did 2 gigs it was Hutch's gig, and Roy wasn't his dream to be there, but he just played out of this world. I mean, out of this world. And I really wish that I had more time under the belt to kind of understand that moment. It's absolute magic. Like it doesn't have to be all Kenny Garrett.
I always have the same wish when I think about everything that I did when I was young. I wish I was better then. I wish I could be there now. understand it, really appreciate it the same way. Be ready for it.
I don't even want to be ready for it. I'm okay at sucking at it, but I would appreciate the minute so much more.
Yeah. Well, such is life.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Man, thanks so much for coming on. The album is really amazing. Like we play it in the house all the time, and
Thank you.
it's really so inspirational, and you're so inspirational to so many. It's really so beautiful to see, and it's great to chat. And if anyone didn't listen to the albums that we spoke about, please get them on vinyl. When you stream it, it's a part in the desert for us. So get in common in trio, especially before they run out of the copies for in trio. Get on vinyl. It sounds amazing. And if anyone's around watching this, next week we have amazing John Schofield talking about this album. We're also giving away this album next week. So tune in. Follow Walter on Instagram. I'm sure you already do. Follow him wherever he is. And Walter, I'll see you when the scene and it goes back to normal.
Yeah, man.
Which is soon.
Do me one favor. Do me one favor. Yeah. Next week when you talk to John Schofield, ask him to do his Boston accent for you. It'll be good.
I've heard that one before, man. I've heard that one before.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thanks.
All right, man. Stay safe. Be good. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
All right.